I mean, I should just say I wasn't a lead investigator or very heavily involved with this. I was just watching it happen and being surprised. But the part of it was the knowledge of the people working it. They knew these databases and these systems existed already and where all the flaws were, because they've worked on this subject for several years, so they know this stuff exists. Really, it was kind of, for the second ID, it was starting with the idea that we had learned from the Montenegro GRU suspect, where he basically had his real ID and his fake ID published. That was already online, and we realised there were certain features that were shared between those IDs, not much, like a date of birth and a first name, and where he was residing. So we said, okay, let's look at all these features on this ID we have on the fake ID and start seeing if any of these pop up in databases. Is there an Alexander who is born on this date who lives in St. Petersburg? And that would give us a pretty long list. But then you can go through that list and start saying, okay, let's eliminate people who we can actually find online. Because a lot of these people have social media accounts, and then they have photographs, so we can eliminate them. So we go through a process of elimination, and then we're left with a smaller group. And they have shared, obviously, date of birth and other details, but they have other details that are different. So then it's looking at another database that might be publicly available. A lot of these are on BitTorrent. One of them is like a 600 gigabyte database of just huge amounts of information that's been online since 2002. So some of these databases are actually quite old as well. But it's then going through each of these databases and looking at that smaller, basically an ever decreasing group of people until we finally got to the individual who had basically all the tick boxes ticked. And then we just basically went and asked for the passport document that we got, and it was the guy's photograph. Now, some people were saying we were like looking through all the passport files and stuff like that, but that would be completely impractical anyway.
Can I ask a later question? Okay. I mean, when in one of the interviews about this investigation, you mentioned something that kind of caught my eye. You said the eureka moment was when I was studying the earlobes, right? And,
yeah.
Why was it interesting for me? There is kind of one of the classic examples for somehow investigative practices in art is an essay by Carlo Ginzburg on the evidentiary methods, and he discusses the work of an art historian. It will be totally interesting for you. An art historian called Morelli in the 19th century who developed a system to analyze fake paintings. And he said, you cannot recognize the fake by, the Poussin by the slightly off blue or the off orange that is very known for, or any of the other features, but look at the earlobes. The earlobes is where the fake painter actually loses for a second their kind of like concentration, and they just do their own earlobe, no? And so earlobes were in the 19th century kind of a way of identifying fakes. And then you were saying,
ears never tell a lie.
It's true. In the case, it was there was a lump on his ear here. The other guy as well his right ear had kind of like a wave to it. You can see it in every single photograph. The other ear is very different shape, and you can actually, if you look at the photographs, if you want to go and do this,
I want to do it.
Just look at all the photographs and just look at the ears really carefully, and you'll notice the same features turn up time and time again. It's a bit hard to see in the Russia Today video because they're not sat looking at the camera. Because all of these are looking at the camera, you can see it. And you can see on the second suspect, he's also got two very distinct blemishes on his chin here and on the side of the face here. There was a TV Rain tracked down some of his old work colleagues who'd worked with him, I think, 2002, and they were working as waiters. And it's the only photograph there is of him where he's smiling. And for me, it was really weird because I've only seen him looking very serious. But you can see those same features again, so that helps us kind of be more confident.
Did you run any face recognition algorithms on it?
We sent it to a university who did like a digital version of it, but to us it was obvious because he had like the same lump on his ear and the same features, and he looked exactly the same. Often, and this comes up a lot, if you've ever followed stuff on Syria, for example, you'll see lots of people posting photos of white helmets next to a jihadi, and they say this is the same person, but they don't provide the sources. Often it's low resolution, and there's at least one example where the two people in the pictures have met each other and taken a photograph together. So often when we're talking about doing this kind of matching between faces, we're looking at really tiny features, we're looking at those moles and blemishes. Sometimes you don't need that when you have other sources to tell you that's the same person, but if it's just two different photographs, that's what you're looking for, that level of detail.